Hi there.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for taking the time. So we got a list of questions for you, and I'm going to hit them one by one. So first of all, would you mind giving us a short introduction about your pre-MBA and post-MBA career?
Sure. So pre-MBA, I'm an undergrad in computer science, and I worked in India for 4 years in strategy and operations at a CPG company called ITC, which is India's largest CPG company. And post-MBA, I switched completely to e-commerce, and I've been in the e-commerce space after graduating at Amazon and a few other e-commerce related organizations.
That's awesome. So when you were in India and then working in the CPG field, what made you decide that you want to get an MBA, especially of abroad?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Honestly, at that time, there's so many things that you want to do to further accelerate your career. And I think I was at a point in time in my life where I really wanted to accelerate my career outside India. And having been in India for a while, and having I would say a decent understanding of the corporate life in India, I wanted to further expand my horizons by changing geographies. And US was one of the geographies that I think it's always well known as a highly professional, highly organized work environment, and I wanted to expose myself to it. And so MBA was one way to sort of change that, the geographic aspect that I just talked about. And also, I think learning a little more about what is it that I don't know. And, having been there and, after working for a few years, you always feel like, hey, yeah, I know this, I know that. But I always felt that, I just don't know what I don't know. And I want to know what is it that I don't know. And so that was another motivation to sort of, change paths and choose the MBA path to further accelerate what I wanted to do.
Got it. Was there a specific career path that you thought you would want to do after the MBA program?
Yeah, very interesting you asked that, because there was a point in time where I really wanted to be in the energy space. Part of my experiences in India were in the wind energy space, and I was pretty instrumental in maybe pioneering some of the green technologies for wind energy, solar energy, etc. at the CPG firm that I was at. And so the path that I wanted to take, at least when I came to HBS, was going more into the energy sector and thinking ways of saving the environment.
Yeah, and you were a trained engineer.
And I was a trained computer science engineer, not necessarily in
not
one of the hard
necessarily.
sciences. But I always found that fascinating at the time. And so, yeah, I did have that as an area that I wanted to go deeper into when I came to HBS. But I think this is the classic blind spot where I did not know what I did not know about some of the other spaces. And I naturally then moved into a different space after MBA.
So for students who are not familiar with the process, a lot of people came to business school with one set of career goal, and then after exposing to all those directions and students and new ideas, they most likely will end up changing that goal.
I think it varies, and I think the best part about an MBA experience is that you learn a lot about so many new areas. You sort of get a lot of diversity of thought that you may not have been exposed to in your pre-MBA life. And I think that does create maybe new ways of thinking and also new opportunities that you want to go after. And I think, from a positioning yourself standpoint, I think it's also an important input into it.
Absolutely. Me, myself, changed the direction multiple times during the 2 years of program. So Rohit, which schools did you choose to apply with that thought? And then how did you write each school's essay to differentiate yourself? Because right now students are, facing the same kind of question, which school am I applying and how to write their essays?
Yeah, so I was pretty selective in terms of which schools I wanted to apply to, because I only wanted to be in a general management focused program. And so the schools that I applied to were HBS, Stanford, Kellogg, and MIT. And it was with a very specific goal of not wanting to sort of, focus on finance, if you will. A lot of folks who apply to business schools either come from a finance background or want a finance background. There are maybe specific schools that are more geared for that. And so I basically applied to these 4 schools. In terms of, differentiating myself and like writing the answers, I think for someone who is, let's say, from a strong engineering background or technical background, I think writing does not come naturally. And at least for me personally, and I think a few of my friends who've been through the same path,
writing is hard for everybody.
That is true. Writing is hard for everybody, but at the end of the day, like a business school application is a narrative. It's a narrative about an individual, in this case, me or any other applicant who's applying. And I think it's important to think of it from the reader's perspective, which is maybe someone in the admissions school, in the admissions program at the school, and so on. And you know yourself the best, but how do you think of it from the person who's maybe viewing multiple of you, and in this case, multiple is like not a small number, like thousands. And so at that point in time, the power of narration is quite important. And you may have a bunch of accomplishments, but if that doesn't come out in whatever the X minutes that someone is spending in reading your essay, then, no matter how good your background was, it may not take you across the finishing line.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
From a differentiating standpoint, going back to the specific question you asked, I did spend a good amount of time trying to sort of streamline my narrative. And how do I make sure that it is not factual alone, but it also has some reading appeal to it. And so that's more like a little bit of style. And, I did need some guidance from a few folks who helped me better understand how to sort of write more effectively.
Got it. And then did you kind of tailor your story towards each school? Do you feel they have different kind of style preference?
Yeah, so another good question. Honestly, I did not tailor it to individual schools. And I don't know if in hindsight I should have tailored it. I think what I've learned now is that I think tailoring is key. And I think that's where help could be useful, whether it's help from professional services or whether it's help from your extended family and friends. But yeah, I think I did not tailor my narratives to different schools, and I think that also was clear in let's say the hits that I got. So I did not get into all the 4 schools that I applied to.
I see. But HBS likes the true Rohit himself. So I mean, that's a great outcome. So you went to the school and then you spent 2 years there and meeting all the other 900 or even more folks from different years. What would you say in your summary, the types of applicants like HBS would like to take or you think would be the best fit for this particular school?
Yeah, I think that's a really hard one in terms of, what is the right fit. I think going back to what I said around general management, I think is one area that I feel that HBS as a school produces a lot of research. And one of, I would say that the most volume of research that it produces is in the general management and the strategy space. And so naturally what happens then is that the faculty, the investment, et cetera, that happens in that space is strong. And, I would say that folks who are interested more in, being more, I would say a general manager, if you will, are folks that naturally get attracted to the school. But in terms of whether the school prefers folks of that nature or not, I think that's just really hard. I think the admissions process is an opaque process. I think to your point earlier, it is a complicated process. And I don't know if it's clearly articulated as to what types of applicants are they looking for.
Yeah, there's no one formula that will fit all.
Yeah.
So it's all very individualized. Got it. So looking back to your experience, what did you like the most? What was the most memorable about your HBS experience? This is such a prestigious school that everybody is just looking up to and then just wanting to understand, oh, what is it like to be there?
Yeah, I think it's hard to sort of pick one specific experience, but I think if I have to maybe pick up some themes, and maybe the one theme that I think really has resonated with me even today is that life is rarely black and white, and we all live in a very gray world. And I think what that means is that there is rarely a right or a wrong answer. I think
Mm-hmm.
there is an answer which may be valid at that point in time from a particular perspective. But I think what the school did for me, by virtue of having a bunch of students together in the same classroom and the case-based method and the discussions and conversations associated with that, it basically tells you that there are multiple perspectives for any situation, and that's why it's not black and white. Maybe in my mind there were multiple situations where I came into the conversation to say, yeah, this is pretty obvious, it should just be this way.
Mm-hmm.
But hearing perspectives that others brought to the table really told me that, yeah, maybe I was being too naive, and maybe I was jumping into conclusion without really understanding all the different perspectives that were being offered by folks who maybe have had different experiences. So I
Yeah.
think this is where diversity of thought comes into play. And I think time and time again, I've noticed that during school, post school, where I think pausing and really hearing other perspectives and then formulating an informed opinion, I think is maybe one theme that I would say was maybe the single biggest learning or maybe life shaping experience that I got out of HBS.
Got it. Yeah, that's the beauty of the case method. You get to hear the same kind of topic being discussed by people from all different backgrounds.
Yeah, and it's just fascinating because yeah, I remember a few different situations where I think, like I said, I came into the room and like, hey, like, yeah, how can you even have a different opinion? Like, it's pretty black and white, from certain lenses that you would use. But more often than not, it was gray. And I
Yeah.
think it still
Yeah.
remains gray. And I think trade-offs is, I think, maybe the right word there, as to how do you sort of ultimately decide what to do by weighing all the different perspectives and ultimately choosing where the trade-off will land.
Exactly. I had those moments at business school as well, because I think that's maybe just how they train general managers, right? That's how they train leaders. You can't just have one perspective. You have to ask the right question and get the right people in the room to understand all different perspectives.
Yeah. So it's a
Got it.
fascinating experience.
Cool. So, I mean, now is the time for people to apply, and what they care the most is, with my particular background, how can I increase the chance of getting in? Any tips? So for folks coming from engineering background, do you have something that you want to say to them, things that they should be emphasizing when they take their background, or things to avoid? Such
Yeah,
tips?
I think I would go back to the narrative building piece that I talked about, where I think it's important to sort of bring out your story in a way that is interesting to read. And so, when you think about communication, I think, just like how we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think there are hierarchies of communications that are out there. In terms of, I think one such structure is, or one such model is, a hierarchy where baseline is structure. The next level above that is clarity. The
Mm-hmm.
next level above that is appeal.
Yeah.
And I think folks from an engineering background, I think, do great from structure perspective and from a clarity perspective, because
Yeah.
that's just how they're trained to think. But I think the appeal perspective is where I feel that sometimes I see some folks lacking,
Mm-hmm.
and not because of not being able to do that. I think it's just more that they've just not been able to experience that in the past, and that is, I think, one thing that really takes the application, I think, to the next level in terms of
Yes.
how do you bring that appeal out in the same narrative that you may have about the person.
Yep. how do you take the facts to a different level to make it a story that attracts
Correct.
people even from like outside the engineering world?
Correct. I think you said it right in terms of how do you sort of take the facts and turn them into a story. And I would say that is hard. It's not easy, and it doesn't come naturally.
It is hard. I'm just out of curiosity, so it's the last question and then I'll let you go, is have you asked yourself, like, what was it about me that attracted to HBS at that time? If you just give yourself like a reason or summarize, have you thought about that in some way?
I have not really thought of it from that perspective, but I do know that HBS values your undergrad academic experience. And I do feel that
undergrad academics.
Yes, and so when I look around, at least in the class that I had at HBS, everyone was somewhat the top of their undergrad class. And so I think when you think about the emphasis on academics, I think I would say that I think it does play a role in the application of what because they do ask you about undergrad GPAs and grades and so on. And so I think I don't know if that was a differentiating factor relative to.
I think it's very important
that we have applied. I think in terms of the variety of experience, I think was interesting too. So I think there were parts of my experience. I think I talked to you a little bit about energy and wind energy and solar energy. I think those were emerging maybe trends and themes at that point in time.
Yeah.
And for someone like me at that point in time who had a lot of in-depth experience about it, maybe it was a valuable experience to bring to the table. But I think, it's just hard. The application process is complex, and the approval process or the admissions process, I think it's a little more complex. So it's hard to sort of pinpoint.
Totally understood. So it's a black box, they say, and you still need to have all those criteria that you maybe need to be top of the criteria, right? You top the box, and then whatever happens is purely just up to luck or the subjectivity to play. And the admission officer even said, if I have to pick this class one more time from the beginning, I may come up with a different answer, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you very much, Rohit, to have you, and appreciate your answers. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks again for having me.